This video is going to be the ultimate sneaker reselling guide on the entire internet. There is so much insane information packed into this that you will not be able to find anywhere else. And by the time you get to the end, you are going to know exactly how to be successful and how to make a ton of money with sneaker reselling. So this is probably going to be the longest video I've ever created. I'm super excited to share this information with you guys. And with that being said, let's just get right into it. All right, so this is going to be the ultimate sneaker reselling guide. And the number one question that you should be asking right now, or that maybe you're already asking, is why should you even watch this video? Why should you give me your most valuable asset, which is your time, and spend however long this video is going to be watching it? And so the answer is right here. I can guarantee that this is going to be better than any paid course or any other paid sneaker reselling information in the world, not even on the internet, in the world. And I've put over 50 hours into making this, and that's why I can make that kind of claim. And I'm going to be giving it to you guys for completely free. And here are some of the topics that we're going to be covering in this video. And basically, if you follow and understand everything that I go over in this guide, the only way that you won't be able to make thousands of dollars in profit is if you literally close your eyes and you try to forget everything that you just learned. And I genuinely believe that reselling is by far one of the easiest ways to make an additional income on your own terms. And I'm very confident that you'll see that for yourself soon. And at this point in time, if you don't know me, you're probably asking, who is this dude and why is he doing this? And so my name is Troy Samick. I've been reselling for the past 4 years, and 2 of these years were actually in college until I decided to drop out. And I've been able to do over $750,000 in sales and make well into 6 figures in profit during this time frame. In terms of sneakers, I've been able to secure a ton of the most hype pairs, which include Travis Scott's, Off-Whites, SB Dunks, and more. And I've never purchased from other resellers, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the video, but I've secured every single pair of sneakers by myself and for the original retail price. I really do know the entire sneaker game like the back of my hand, and I'm going to be giving you guys everything within this guide for completely free. I'm not going to sit here flexing proof and showing screenshots of my bank account like every other influencer online. You'll be able to tell by the quality of this training that I'm telling the truth and that I know what I'm talking about. So who is this guide for? Who is this course for? The answer is very simple. If you're someone who's looking to make a substantial source of income with reselling, this is for you. If you're someone who wants to take care of their family and prove to themselves that they have what it takes to make money on their own terms, this is for you. If you're someone tired of relying on a paycheck from someone else, this is for you. And if you're someone who's looking for a new business model that actually works and provides real results, this is for you. And last but not least, if you're someone who is tired of bullshit courses and scams that are going to waste your time and money, then this is for you. And so you might be asking, what do I get out of teaching this? Why am I putting all of this time into making this? And there's 2 main reasons. So number one is I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I started my first business when I was 13 years old, which was Instagram pages way back in the day. And in high school, I started to realize that the entire education system was pretty much complete garbage. And I started to do some research, and I realized that the major colleges and the major universities in the US were making billions, with a B, billions of dollars every single year. And, I was then sitting there and I was asking myself, okay, why are there professors teaching business and entrepreneurship at these major schools and these major colleges when they've never ran a single business in their entire life? And I realized this at a very early age. And this whole concept and a lot of other shit made absolutely no sense to me. So my game plan was to make millions of dollars with my own companies and then teach as a professor at a business school to actually be able to help, aspiring entrepreneurs and be able to give them real advice from someone who's actually did it. And so that was like my game plan since I was a kid, was to be able to do that. And fortunately, I'm now in the position to be able to do this with social media, with these videos and my reselling group. And I really am genuinely extremely grateful for that. And so that's reason number one. And reason number 2 is that I hope I provide you an insane amount of value in this video to the point where you want to take things to the next level and you become a part of my private reselling group called Resell Kings. And that's it. I'm not here to hide anything. Those are my main 2 motivators for doing this. And let's keep it going. So just a little bit of information about Resell Kings. This is my private reselling group where basically our number one goal is to make our members money. And so we send out daily alerts for profitable items and flips and deals and all that kind of stuff. We have a full-on education system, full-on support team. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, you can click on this button right here. You can open it in a new tab. And this is just going to give you, all the information about everything that we do. So you can see if it's something that you're interested in becoming a part of. And then I also have a free group as well, and you can join that right now. And real quick, this guide is going to be down in the description below if you want, to go through this yourself and you want the written version. I'll also have the link to join the free server down in the description below. And also, last point is I'm going to be creating a ton of guides, just as detailed, just as advanced as these. They're going to be on reselling, finance, making money online, and just anything that I think could provide a ton of value to people. So make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss one of those. So real quick, we're going to talk about some mindset stuff before we get into it because I think this is very important. And then we're going to deep dive into everything reselling sneakers, and I'm very excited for that. So let's keep going. So this is one of the biggest issues in society today. And basically, instant gratification does not equal success. And so if you're starting, if you're watching this video, and once again, this goes for anything, it doesn't just go for reselling. If you're going in with the mindset that you're going to instantly start getting 20 pairs of the most hype sneakers, and you're instantly going to start making 5 to 10K a month right away without putting in any work, I really shouldn't even have to comment on how wrong of a mindset this is. There's a very simple reason why people pay hundreds and even thousands of dollars for sneakers, and it's because they're hard to get. That's the main reason. And like I said, if you really think about it, that's pretty much the only reason. If sneakers were super easy to get and anybody could buy them whenever they wanted, they would have no value and nobody would want to pay a high price for them. So here is a very easy reality check of the current climate of just people and the market. If you are able to focus and stick with something for more than 1 to 2 months, 30 to 60 days, you will be outperforming 95% of people in today's society and other people who are also trying to do this. If you can just stick with it for 2 months, and that's the truth. So being successful a lot of the time is simply just a game of odds. If you're putting in minimal effort, you will have very low odds of being able to secure profitable sneakers. If you put in high effort, somehow your luck will increase and you'll actually start being able to hit pairs. So if you want to learn how to successfully resell sneakers and be able to make thousands of dollars in profit while doing it, that is exactly what I'm going to be teaching you. So let's get into it. And here's a little meme that I created. What are the odds that you will be successful at sneaker reselling? So we're going to talk about some sneaker history real quick. And the most basic question is, why do sneakers resell in the first place? Besides for the basic concept of supply and demand, aka more people want the sneakers than the stock that is available to them, the main reason that sneakers resell is the same reason that any other collectible item in the world does too. There's a massive base of sneakerheads and collectors, and it's been this way since the 1980s. There will always be a new sneaker, a new colorway, a new model, a new endorsement, a new celebrity, and there will always be profitable sneakers to resell. In my opinion, it is extremely difficult to see sneaker reselling going away completely anytime soon. So sneakers have been reselling since the 1980s, which is around the time when Michael Jordan signed with Nike, but they really started to gain popularity in the early 2000s. New York was one of the original breeding grounds for sneaker culture and sneaker hype, and this came about with releases like the Staple Pigeon SB Dunks, which is this shoe in this newspaper right here, and these are currently selling for between $50,000 and $100,000. And this was one of the first times in history that a sneaker made major headlines, and it's because this shoe basically caused a riot in New York City. And so we've seen many popular sneakers come and go, and there's always going to be a new model or a new collaboration that everyone's excited about. We've had sneakers like Bape, LeBrons, NMDs from Pharrell, Yeezys, Off-Whites, and many, many more. All of these were the talk of the town at one point in time. And over more recent times, over the past 3 to 5 years or so, one of the most significant changes has been the way that sneakers can be purchased and sold. The introduction of platforms like StockX and GOAT have made buying and selling sneakers much more accessible than it once was before. Before this, it was basically just eBay, sneaker stores selling them locally. There was no StockX, there was no GOAT. And so now let's quickly talk about the rep of resellers as a whole. Resellers have a negative rep overall when it comes to the sneaker community and when it comes to real sneakerheads. These people are upset because they aren't able to get the shoes they want for the original retail price, and they have to pay the resale price. This applies to pretty much all resellers in other markets too outside of sneakers. Overall, resellers just kind of have a negative rep because people aren't able to get the item that they want for the original price. In my opinion, all of these people complaining can absolutely get fucked. I see comments on Instagram filled with so much hate for resellers. I saw one the other day telling all resellers that they should straight up die, and I was just sitting there looking at my phone with disbelief. And so if you're one of those people watching this video, here is a reality check for you. First of all, if you hate another group of humans so much to the point where you're taking time out of your day to comment below posts on Instagram, your life probably isn't too great to start with. I think that's probably true in like 90+% of cases. Second of all, resellers are the ones who are investing time, energy, and money into being able to secure hype sneakers in bulk and for the original retailer price. Most of these true sneakerheads don't do a thing besides complain that the sneakers are sold out and that they're too hard to get. I can guarantee they aren't going to be reading this guide. They're essentially mad because they're getting outcompeted and because people who are putting in more work than them are actually getting what they want. And the reality is that whoever puts in the most effort and actually tries will be the ones who are able to achieve what they want to achieve in life. And this goes for anything in life. Instead of them complaining about the way things are, they could take action and take steps to learn about everything posted in this document, plus more, to actually have a chance at getting the sneakers they want. Instead, they choose to take no action and complain. They have zero accountability for their own situation, and that is completely on them. And just to be clear, I am 100% in support of sneakerheads and anyone who actually enjoys the culture and wearing shoes. I do that myself, right? But I'm just talking about the minority group that feels the need to constantly voice their opinion about how life isn't fair and how resellers are terrible people. And just don't be like, this orange guy in this diagram. And to wrap this up, everyone should have full and utter accountability for their own life. You are in the position you are right now because you put yourself there. Start focusing on everything that you can control. Stop blaming others and go make shit happen. And that's my quick rant. Now let's get into the current situation of the sneaker reselling market. So let's break down the current sneaker market. This guide is being written in April now of 2024, but I will continuously be updating it with any changes throughout the year. And I really do expect this guide to be applicable for years into the future. I really tried to make it that way when I was coming up with the whole thing. So just to be clear, there is 1000% money to be made when it comes to sneaker reselling. If anyone tells you differently, I promise they do not know what they're talking about. A lot of people started reselling sneakers during COVID, which was 2020 and 2021, and this caused a massive increase in the prices of the overall sneaker market. And basically, everyone was receiving stimulus checks, free money from the government, and they were spending money like crazy on things that they normally wouldn't be purchasing. And this caused a massive increase in prices across pretty much every other market out there. I'm sure you're familiar with cars, watches, Pokemon cards. All of these markets absolutely skyrocketed, and the same exact thing happened with sneakers. So now, since things are starting to settle down, the prices of sneakers are beginning to return to their normal prices before this massive spike happened in the first place. And the same exact thing applied to pretty much every other single market out there as well. I can't really think of one that the prices are still as high as they were when COVID was happening. So what this basically means is that sneakers that are actually good will resell for high profits now. And there's about 3 to 5 of these good releases every month, and sometimes there's even more. And why I'm even saying this in the first place is because during those massive spikes, it was pretty much any shoe under the sun that would release would resell for a profit. But now it's only the quality shoes that are actually going to be reselling. And like I said, 3 to 5 plus of these every single month. One key point to also consider is that once Nike saw the prices of their shoes skyrocketing during this time, they started to produce a ton of stock for all of their upcoming releases. And just to kind of give you guys some insights, if you're seeing a sneaker release now, pretty much Nike was planning this release and started making production for it a minimum of 6 to 12 months ago. So everything that you're seeing now was put into production about a year ago, more or less. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but that's just kind of like a general rule of thumb to go off of. And so basically they saw this massive demand and they just started producing a ton of stock to be releasing into the future. And so now, since people don't have as much disposable income after the stimulus money faded, Nike was left with shoes that were sitting on shelves because they produced too much stock for those specific models and colorways. So if you've ever seen people talking about how, this model of sneaker they just found at their store because it's sitting on shelves, this is one of the main reasons why. And so as of the time of writing this article, Nike has started to decrease stock on their releases, and it should continue to be this way for the remainder of the year. And this is very good for resellers because with the less stock, there will be a higher demand, and the prices of most shoes that are actually good are going to stay high, and we'll be able to resell them for very good profits. And so just to be clear, they have made a public statement about this and said that they're going to be taking action on it. This isn't just something that I'm guessing. They literally said that they are going to be decreasing stock across a ton of the major models and major colorways, which is a very big positive for sneaker reselling. So although we don't have COVID prices, which were absolutely skyrocketed just like every other market, there is still plenty of money to be made with sneaker reselling. And once again, don't listen to anybody that's telling you differently. So this is just some quick sneaker terminology. We're not going to go through every one of these here, but once again, this document will be down in the description below if you want to access it for yourself. And let's get into it. So here is how to resell sneakers for a profit. And there's going to be a lot of different methods of reselling. So there's plenty of different methods of sneaker reselling, and it's ultimately going to be up to you to decide on which methods make the most sense for you within your current situation. And I'm going to be giving you every single piece of information you need to know so you'll be able to make an informed decision for yourself. And so here are the main types of sneaker reselling. So we have new sneakers online, new sneakers in actual sneaker stores, new sneakers from online raffles, new sneaker from in-store raffles, new sneakers from outlets, used sneakers online, used sneakers local, purchasing from other resellers. And like I said, I know that was a lot, but we are going to be discussing all of these in detail down below. So let's talk about purchasing sneakers online. And so when it comes to purchasing sneakers online, you're going to be purchasing them from major sneaker retailers and sneaker boutiques. So there's going to be three main ways to get sneakers directly from these online retailers. The first way is going to be by purchasing them directly from sneaker websites. So you going on to Nike.com or Adidas.com or Footlocker.com, whatever website, and going on there and purchasing the sneaker directly from them. And so with this method, without using any bots or software, and we're going to be talking about this in complete detail a little bit later, this is going to require a decent amount of luck, but there are some ways that you can improve your odds of being successful with this, which we are also going to discuss. So the first way is buying them directly from the sneaker websites. The second way is by entering raffles both online and at local sneaker retailers in your area. And once again, will require some luck, but of course, we're going to be covering all of the ways that you can increase your chances when doing this. And then the third way is going to in-store releases at your local sneaker retailers. And so this isn't for raffles. This is actually going into the store when they release the sneakers, first come, first serve, and trying to get them that way. So this is going to be stores such as Foot Locker, Finish Line, Snipes, etc., and then purchasing sneakers right from them. So each of these methods has their pros and cons, and we're going to be discussing all of them shortly. But before that, let's talk about which sneakers you should be going for and how to tell if a sneaker is actually going to be profitable. And just to do a quick little recap on this, it's number one, you're buying sneakers directly from online sneaker websites. Number two, you're getting them from raffles. And number three, you are going into your local sneaker retailers and trying to get sneakers directly from them. So how to know which sneakers to buy. This is going to be packed with information, so make sure you're paying attention. This is a very important section. And as of March 2024, this is highly likely to be the same throughout the rest of this year and years beyond, in my opinion. The best and most hyped sneakers include Jordan 4s, Nike SB Dunks, collaborations such as Travis Scott, this is a very important one, Jordan 1s, New Balance, Salehi Bembury, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, JJJJ Jound, however you pronounce that, and Yeezys. And so, of course, there is a small chance that every single pair from this list above will be profitable, but these are the main names that you want to be looking out for because every single one of these will have profitable releases coming up into the future. So here's how you check if a sneaker is actually profitable. So you see that a sneaker is upcoming, you see that it's going to be releasing, or you're looking to buy a sneaker off of somebody else. You need to know and you need to be able to check if it's actually going to be profitable and it's actually going to be worth going for. And so here's how you do that. The first way is going to be StockX, and the next way is going to be on eBay. And you can also use GOAT for this as well. You can use the same exact method. And so we're going to talk about these specific platforms in the selling section of this document, which is a little bit later, but this is going to be a brief rundown of how they work and how you can use them to your advantage. So StockX and eBay are going to be the main two platforms that you'll be able to check to see if a sneaker is going to be profitable. The two main factors for an upcoming release are going to be pre-sale value and the volume of sales. Pre-sale value is how much people are paying before the actual release date of that sneaker. So if a sneaker is releasing on April 13th, how much are these sneakers currently selling for on April 8th, April 9th, April 10th? It is a pre-sale value of the sneaker because a lot of times people will get early pairs or whatever it is. Somehow people are going to have the sneaker before the release date and they're going to try to be selling them. And so you want to be looking at pre-sale value. It's super important. This pre-sale value is mainly going to be applying to new pairs because it's before the actual release, but it can sometimes apply to used pairs too. So on this shoe, for example, the retail price is $210, and you can see that the asks, aka what people are willing to sell the shoe for, is around $270 to $350, which is going to be some very solid profits for this shoe. And so this screenshot was a few days before the shoe actually dropped to the public. So this was the pre-sale value prices. And we can tell that when prices are this high beforehand, the shoe in most cases is going to remain profitable after they release. And currently the prices are right around this same kind of mark as well. I think they're like $280, $290, $300 on this specific shoe, which was a great shoe that dropped. We had a ton of people who were able to hit a lot of these within the group. And so pre-sale value, one of the most important factors of checking if a sneaker is profitable. And then the second most important factor is going to be sales volume. And so this is basically how many pairs of this sneaker are selling every day. And so we can see on the sneaker we just looked at, the Bread 4 Reimagined, is there's about 20 to 30 sales per day on this sneaker before the public release happened. And overall, that is very solid sales volume. Decent volume would be a few sales per day, and then very low volume would be like one sale a week, one sale a month. And if you're seeing that, then it's not a very good sign. Because the thing to consider is that, so anyone can go onto StockX right now, even if they don't have the shoe in their possession, and they can list a size 10 of an upcoming shoe for $600, $700. Anyone can do that right now. But the reality is that the only thing that matters is, are people actually buying them for that price? So when we look at sales volume, we can see, okay, a lot of people are buying this sneaker, and we can see that they're selling for, a minimum of $290, which is some really solid profits. So that's StockX. Super easy to do and super kind of easy to use those two elements to see if a sneaker is going to be profitable. And so next we want to look at eBay, and this is just a double check, and this is just kind of confirming what we're seeing on StockX as well. So sales on eBay are around the same prices as StockX, but one thing to note is that eBay sales will almost always be higher than StockX, and we're going to talk more about this in the selling section of this course, and you're going to hear my opinions on the best platforms, the best ways to just be able to sell your sneakers for the highest amount of profits possible. But you can see already on eBay, we have $389, $370, $360 best offer accepted compared to, $308, $310. So eBay in most cases is always going to be higher prices than StockX. So we can see the pre-sale market price on eBay is around $350 to $370 per pair. And once again, this is pre-sale value. So the price will typically drop after the shoe releases to the public, and after a bunch of people hit, they get the pairs in hand, and then they actually start selling them. And so in this case, like I mentioned before, the shoe ended up being around $300 to $320 post-release, which is still a very profitable shoe. So let's talk about purchasing sneakers online. So purchasing sneakers online is typically going to be the most effective and least time-consuming way of doing things. There are tons of details that go into this, and we're going to be covering all of them right now. So this is the first method out of the three that we were talking about a little bit earlier, which is online, Raffles, or in-store. So we're going to be talking about purchasing sneakers online directly from sneaker websites. So when a big sneaker is releasing, they will typically drop across 10 to 20 plus different retailers online. And the main retailers include Nike, Finish Line, JD Sports, Foot Locker, and Hibbett. And then there's a ton of different other ones. And there's also a lot of different Shopify sites such as Kith, Undefeated, DTLR, and more. And once again, we're going to be discussing more about these a little bit later in the guide. And so essentially, you're just going to want to target a few of these websites to have the best chances of being able to hit. And most of these are typically going to drop around 10 a.m. EST on the day of the release. Each of these websites is going to behave differently, and there's going to be a lot of different tips and tricks that you're going to have to learn as you just gain experience with going for more releases. And what I mean by this is that, the checkout process will be different on some sites versus others. Some sites are going to be super laggy during releases. Other sites are just, only going to drop a limited amount of pairs, and some might drop a ton of pairs. And so all these different websites are going to have a little bit of a different way of releasing sneakers. And like I said, as you gain experience and as you continue going for them, you're going to start to understand exactly what the best websites to go for, which ones you are just the best at, and which ones you're going to have the best chance of hitting. You basically just have to be smart with selecting which of these websites you want to go for, because there's going to be a ton to choose from. And you obviously want to select the ones that you think you're going to have the best chance of being able to secure that sneaker from. Assuming that you're not using a bot or any kind of software, and once again, we're going to be talking about that later, your best chances of being able to secure hype sneakers for the retail price online is combining a mix of going for these online releases as well as going for online and in-store raffles, which we talked about a little bit earlier and which we're going to talk about next. And so simply put, the more entries and the more just attempts that you get in and the websites that you go for, the higher chance you're going to have of being able to secure that sneaker. Let's talk about some of the main retailers to be focusing on. In my opinion, these are the best websites that everyone should be going for if you actually want the highest chances of being able to hit. And so here's just, an example of some sneaker websites that tend to release. Number one, and this is one that you might be familiar with, is going to be called the Nike Sneakers app. And so Nike Sneakers app explained, if you have been in the game at least for, a month or more, you've probably seen this symbol somewhere online, the got 'em screen, and this is from the Nike Sneakers app. And so one of the most popular and best platforms to secure sneakers from is called the Nike Sneakers app. So this is Nike's official app. So anytime there's a good collaboration or a good release, in 95% of cases, they will be dropping on this app. This is where the most hype sneakers will be releasing. This is an absolute must-have app. This is where pretty much everything is going to be dropping on. And so with that being said, you should download this right now from the App Store if you haven't already. It is 100% completely free. This app is relatively difficult to hit on if you don't know what you're doing. But luckily for you guys, I have a ton of experience with hitting sneakers from here. And there was a point in time where I was hitting on 80 to 90% of every single hype sneaker that was dropping. And I'm going to be explaining how I was able to do this and how you can replicate these results. So first things first, it's important to understand how the app even works in the first place. You're basically just going to set up a free account and you're going to enter in all your information, like your address, your email, your phone number, and your credit or debit card details. And shoes will typically load onto the app a few days prior to them releasing. So in most cases, you're going to know exactly when and how a sneaker is going to be releasing. One thing that Nike will occasionally do is something called a shock drop. And this basically means that they're going to release sneakers on their app without any prior notice or without any information or announcement to the public. And so quick plug, within Resell Kings, we actually have our own plugs that work directly with Nike, and they alert us beforehand whenever one of these shock drops is happening. And so we always know hours in advance when something profitable is going to release, even though Nike themselves don't announce anything to the general public. And so for sneakers that are not a shock drop, which is going to be most of them, these will release on the app almost every week, and you're going to have the chance to enter in for them as a 10-minute raffle, also referred to as a Dan release. So at drop time, all you're going to do is basically click on the sneaker that you want to go for, and you should be seeing it on the main home feed on the app. And then you're just going to enter in for whatever size that you want. After 10 minutes, when the raffle closes, you're either going to get lucky and you're going to win the shoes, or you're going to take an L and you're not going to win the shoes. And so that's a Dan release. It's basically you go onto the app, you enter in for a quick 10-minute raffle, and when the 10 minutes are over, you're going to be alerted if you won or not. So for less popular sneakers, they will release as a Leo release, which basically just means a 2 to 3 minute raffle, and basically the same exact thing that I just described, except it's going to be 2 to 3 minutes instead of a 10-minute raffle. These releases are typically a little bit easier to win because they're not doing as much filtering, which we'll talk about in just a second, but just know that it's basically the same thing except a shorter time frame for the raffle. Let's talk about increasing your chances of being able to hit on the Nike Sneakers app, which, like I said, if you've been in the game for over a month, then this is probably going to be one of the most important sections in this guide that you're going to want to pay attention to. So the main way to increase your chances of being able to hit on the Nike Sneakers app is by entering in multiple accounts into each drop. And this might sound super obvious, but I promise there is a lot of details that go into this, and I'm going to be explaining all of them down below. The main concept to be able to do this is to use unique information on each account and making yourself look different to Nike. This basically means that for every account, you want to be using a different name, a different device, a different phone number, different payment information, and a different address. And you might be thinking, okay, but I only have one address, one phone number, and one card to make purchase with. Don't worry, all right? I got you. There are plenty of workarounds for all of this. And like I said, we're going to be covering all of them in detail. First things first, this is the absolute number one recommendation. It's going to be friends and family. So this is the lowest hanging fruit for the majority of people, which basically means the easiest thing that you can grab or take advantage of right now. So at the end of the day, the Sneakers app is going to be a game of odds. If someone tries to tell you that there is some specific method or algorithm hack you can do to win, you shouldn't trust anything else that comes out of that person's mouth. There's no special settings you can enable on your account that will help you win. There's no specific way of entering releases that will help you win. This is all complete nonsense. So to put it very simply, the more entries that you get into the release, the higher chance you will have of winning. This is also assuming that you are getting quality entries in and your entries aren't getting filtered out by Nike. My example that I made, more entries equals more wins. So let's keep talking about friends and family. So when it comes to reaching out to friends and family, here is the best method in my opinion. Number one is going to be incentivizing them. Humans love incentive. So I'd offer them a flat fee for every sneaker they're able to purchase for you. The fee will depend on the sneaker they got and whatever you think is fair. And if it's a good sneaker that you're going to make $50 profit on, let's say, you can give them $10 or something like that. And if you make $500 from a pair, then you can give them $100. Whatever you guys can agree on that you think is good. And just to be clear, if it's your mom or your dad or something, like more than likely they're going to want to do it for free. But the point of this is that you're reaching out to a wide net of people, friends, cousins, relatives, whoever. And, a lot of people aren't going to want to spend time doing this. So those are the people that you want to be incentivizing. If someone's down to do it for free, that is best case scenario. So when this person agrees and they're willing to do this for you, when they're making their account, they should be using their own information for everything. A quick checklist for this would be their own device, their own name, their own email, their own phone number, and their own payment method. And once they've done that, all you're going to want to do is just remind them before every release. And one very important thing you should do is just send them a screenshot of the exact shoe they should be entering for. I remember a while ago within the group, this guy told his friend to go for this sneaker and he just copped an absolute brick, and it was very funny. So send them a screenshot of whatever sneaker they should be going for. So if they win, you simply just send them money for whatever the shoe costed. And we're going to be talking about best payment methods and stuff like that later in the guide. But they win, you send them the money, and you also send them the commission that you're going to pay them. When the shoe arrives, you go and pick them up from their house, and that's pretty much it. It's a super basic concept, and this really, really, really is super important when you're just getting started. And one thing to consider, if there's a super profitable sneaker, which could be $500, $1,000 in profit, then it could be worth it to you to hit up everyone you know, even if they don't live close, and then they can just ship the shoe to you whenever they get it. And so this is the end goal, this picture right here. And this is everyone with sneaker accounts entering in for Raffles for you. So multiple entries. This might seem like a lot of work, and that's because it is. This is the difference between people who don't win a single time and people who are able to win consistently. It's up to you to decide on which person you want to be. So if we just do some quick maths, we can see that if you are able to get 2 quality entries instead of just 1, you are mathematically increasing your chances of winning by 100%, double. If you get 5 quality entries in, then you are increasing your odds by 400% compared to just 1 entry. Obviously, guys, this is a massive, massive difference. So the people that you always hear complaining that they're never hitting, ask them how many entries that they're getting in, and I can guarantee it's 1, maybe 2 max. Now imagine for a second if instead of getting 5 entries in, you were able to get 50 in, or what about 500 in? And this is completely possible. I've done it many, many times before in the past, and there's a ton of people in our group who do the exact same. And this is going to require a little bit more than just utilizing your friends and family. So let's keep it moving. First things first, we have multiple devices. And so another quick point is that you should be utilizing all of the possible devices that you have in your household. For whatever reason, people always seem to hit on iPads. I don't know why. I have no idea why. If you have an iPad, definitely make sure to be using it. Nike does track IP addresses, and we're going to be talking about this more in a second. So for a quick rule of thumb, you should only be running 2 to 3 devices on the same Wi-Fi at any given point in time. So for example, if you have 3 devices, let's say you have 2 iPhones and 1 iPad, for example, then it would probably be ideal to run 1 iPhone and 1 iPad on Wi-Fi, and then the other iPhone on mobile data, which is your 5G or your LTE. So at this point in time, you should take action on hitting up your friends and family and seeing who would be willing to set up an account and enter in on all of the profitable releases for you. You should do that right now. Take some action. At least make out a list of every single person you can think of that would be willing to do this for you. Come up with some, kind of incentive model and get that done, because that's going to be extremely important. And once you hit your first sneaker, or once a family member hits a sneaker that you make $200-$300 profit on, you're going to be happy you did it. One thing to keep in mind is that these releases will typically happen at 10 a.m. EST, and they'll usually never be earlier than this. They will only be later. So if you're on the West Coast, it's going to be early, but that really shouldn't change anything in my opinion. Wake up early and just get after it. And this is Unbreakable Kicks on YouTube showing his 3 devices. I thought that was a funny picture. And so now let's talk about running multiple accounts by yourself. And so this is not going to involve friends and family, but let's get into it. When you're first starting out, friends and family is going to be the absolute #1 recommendation, as it is completely free to do and it's almost impossible to mess up. And so messing up just basically means making shitty accounts and getting bad entries in so that you get filtered on Nike's end and they basically just don't count and they don't actually get entered into the release. And so this is something that could happen when you try to scale up and run, 50, 100, 200 accounts. So just keep that in mind. With friends and family, there's very little variables that can go wrong. Everyone will be using a different IP address, aka, different Wi-Fi or a different LTE on their phone. They're going to be using a different card, different name, different email, different phone number, etc. So it makes a lot of sense when you're just starting out to just begin with that. It's going to be free, and like I said, it's hard to mess up and make bad accounts. So now let's assume that you've been doing that for a few months, you've gotten some wins, you've made a couple $1,000s, and you're ready to now begin scaling up. This is, by the way, one of my favorite shoes ever, the Jordan 4 Off-White sales. So now let's talk about how many accounts you can run on your own. So this is about to get super in depth and will be the most technical part of this section and maybe this entire guide. Some of this information may be repeated in the botting section of this course, but that's probably for the best as it can get a little bit confusing. So I'm going to be explaining everything in a very easy way for you guys to understand. And here's a diagram of how it's going to be working. So Nike account, AKA one entry into whatever sneaker you want to be going for. You are going to be needing a different phone number, a different email address, a different card/payment method, and a different proxy or IP address. So if you have no idea what that last one is, do not worry. Nike accounts. Every single Nike account that you are running, includes the ones from your friends and family, will all have to be unique in a few different ways. And these are the different ways listed here. Number one is a unique phone number, and this is basically just to make the account itself. Unique email address. This is to make the account, and this is also required for two-step verification. Different card or payment information. This is used for entering each drop and actually purchasing the sneaker. You're going to need a unique shipping address. And so you can reuse the same address about 10 times with something called jigging, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And then you're going to need a different proxy or IP address. So Nike doesn't see 50 accounts all coming from the same Wi-Fi, from the same house, from the same IP address. And we're going to talk about all of these in detail. So all of these should be relatively self-explanatory besides for the proxies and the jigging as well. And so I'm going to explain proxies now, and then I'll explain them again during the botting section of this guide. And I'm also going to be explaining jigging in the botting section of this guide as well, which is going to be a little bit later. So here is a basic visual of how proxies work. So this is you on your home IP address on, AKA your router or your Wi-Fi, and you're going to be telling a proxy server that you want to go to google.com. And so this is your IP address. And then the proxy server's IP address is going to be completely different. So the proxy server is trying to go on google.com. And so Google is going to receive the request from the proxy server IP, which is 2.2.2.2, which is making you anonymous. And if that absolutely made no sense, I explained it better right here. Every single person who has a router, AKA your Wi-Fi, has something called an IP address. An IP address is essentially the online address for your router, AKA your Wi-Fi. So just like you have a home address that you live in, like 123 Main Street, Miami, Florida, whatever that is, your router is also going to have a unique address. Nobody's router address, AKA the IP address, is the same, and everyone's is going to be completely unique from one another. Whenever you visit any website in the world, let's just use Nike.com for this example, they are able to see your IP address. An issue arises when a website sees that there is 100 accounts coming onto their website all at the same time from the same IP address. So if they see 100 accounts all entering in from your home router, your Wi-Fi, your IP address, that is going to look very suspicious and very unhuman-like. So they can easily tell that this is a very unhuman-like amount of traffic coming onto the website at the same time because it's all coming from one person. They can easily tell that because you're using the same IP address for all those 100 accounts. So in order to avoid this happening, we are going to be using something called proxies, which is basically just a way to mask our IP addresses and change them at scale. And so a proxy is essentially like a new IP address that you're able to use on all of your accounts so that each one looks completely unique. And if you guys are familiar with VPNs, proxies are essentially the same exact thing, except instead of using, you can use one VPN on your computer, you're able to use proxies at scale for hundreds and hundreds of different accounts. So if you're running 100 tasks or 100 accounts onto a website, you would run 100 unique proxies for each account that all have a different IP address and a different location. So instead of the website seeing 100 tasks coming from one IP address and one location, it would just look like 100 random IP addresses, aka 100 different proxies, coming from different locations, which makes it extremely more complex to be able to track and see if it's actually all coming from one person. So I know that was a lot, and hopefully that makes sense. I would recommend looking at the visual again, and I'm going to be showing you in more detail how proxies actually work down below. And just to kind of scroll up, so remember, this is our Wi-Fi. This is the proxy that you can buy. You can buy this new IP address. You're going to use the proxy, and so now when you're coming onto the website, instead of seeing your home IP address, you're using the proxy to mask this and change it. So now Google or Nike or whoever is going to see this new IP address, which is going to look completely anonymous. And we can run hundreds and hundreds of these different proxies to make it look like it's just a ton of different random people coming onto the website. Hopefully, I think that should have hit home, I hope, but we're going to keep going. So once again, your computer proxy server goes to the internet. Instead of, you just going directly to the internet, you're running through a proxy. So if you're running a sneaker bot or some kind of software, there's going to be a place where you're able to insert your proxies. But let's assume that you wanted to make 5 to 10 Nike accounts by yourself, and you just wanted to run them directly from your computer. And you are completely able to do this, and let me explain how. So we're going to be using Chrome users for this. And you can make new Chrome users by clicking on your profile image. And obviously you have to be using Chrome for this, but you click on this little T here, or whatever your initial is. You're going to click on the add button. And then you're going to want to give this Chrome user a name that will be easy to remember. And now you can essentially think of this Chrome user as a completely new device. So, if you're using your phone, you make a new Chrome user, it's almost like you have an iPad or something like that, but this is all obviously going to be on your computer. And so if you're using 3 unique Chrome users, this would be the equivalent of using 2 iPhones and 1 iPad in the example above. The reason this works is because Chrome users don't share cookies between one another. And if you ever go onto a website and they're like, accept cookies, deny cookies, those are the type of cookies that we're talking about. And when you make a new Chrome user, they don't have the same cookies. And so they're pretty much completely separated, and they look unique when going onto a website in terms of the actual cookies and in terms of the device that they're coming from. That's what it looks like to the website. So the only thing now that we're missing is a proxy, because even if you have separate Chrome users, they're still going to be using the same IP address, because you're just on your normal Wi-Fi, just using both of these Chrome users. And so just to be clear, quick tip, using new tabs does not work. It needs to be a completely separate Chrome user. So when we're using separate Chrome users, it looks like a different device, and then we're using a separate proxy on each of these Chrome users. They look like they're coming from a different location. So now we have different device and different location handled, and then we're gonna have to work on the other steps of the information. So hopefully we're making some progress here, and this makes sense. I know it is technical, but this is what's required, guys. This is literally straight sauce right here. So hopefully this is making sense. If it doesn't, just go back and watch it a couple times, and you should be good to go. So using proxies continued. So like I said, we need to put a unique proxy on each Chrome user. And so to do this, you're going to download an extension called BP Proxy Switcher. And this is the correct one right here. And you're going to want to install it on Chrome. And you should now be able to access it by clicking on the little puzzle piece top right of your Chrome browser. And I don't know what this image was. I think it was just showing the puzzle piece, which is right down here. And so if you don't see it, click on the 3 lines at the top right of your Chrome, these 3 lines right here, and then go to extensions right here. And then you're just going to want to activate it, and you'll be able to see that. So you're going to have to install this BP Proxy Switcher extension on each and every single Chrome user that you plan to use proxies and run a Nike account on. Because when you're using this extension and when you insert a proxy, that will only apply to that specific Chrome user that it's being used on. So after you insert a proxy, you'll be able to test out if the proxy is actually working by typing in what is my IP address on Google, and then it should be showing you some random location, and this is where the proxy you're using is going to be located. So just to do a quick recap of everything, we're going to use different Chrome users for every single Nike account that we want to run. So let's say that we want to get 10 entries and we want to run 10 Nike accounts. We're going to make 10 separate Chrome users. So now it's looking like they're all coming from separate devices to Nike. That's what we want. And then on each Chrome user, we're going to be using a different proxy, so it looks like they're all coming from different locations and they're not all coming from the same IP address. So let's talk about buying proxies. And if you type in proxy on Google, you're going to see thousands and thousands of different companies and options to buy from. 95% of these are going to be complete garbage. And so I used to run my own proxy company, so I know exactly how the game works. And the one thing about proxies and getting into this game of really scaling up is that it can be volatile at times. A proxy company that was working super great could stop working or just go out of business the next day. There's a ton of possibilities that could happen. And the most important part is really just ensuring that your proxies are fully 100% working and not getting filtered or detected by Nike. And for that reason, I'm not going to give any specific proxy company recommendations, but I will say this. There are two main types of proxies. The first is called residential, and the second is called ISP proxies. And the main type that you want to use for Nike is going to be ISP proxies, as these will have a less likely chance of getting banned, and the proxies won't be changing every month. So this will consistently keep the account you're using on the same proxy, the same IP address, which is a positive overall, and it just looks better to Nike when your account is entering in from the same proxy or the same IP address every single release. And so there are a few select residential proxy providers that work well, at least as of now, but for the most part, I would stick to ISP proxies for Nike. So using a sneaker bot on Nike is going to be a very similar process to everything that we just discussed. You're going to need accounts, you're going to need proxies, and you're going to need different shipping and billing information. Then, instead of using Chrome users, you basically just plug all that information into the bot itself, and then it automates a lot of this process. So what we just described is essentially how a sneaker bot works, but the only difference is that, a sneaker bot is going to be automating a lot of that process for you. So once again, if you're serious about learning all of this and you're really just someone who wants to jump in the game head first, I highly recommend checking out my group Resell Kings. We have some of the most insane sneaker resellers and sneaker botters who will be able to show you everything so you don't make mistakes, you don't waste time, and ultimately you don't waste any money. All right, so let's talk about release day. We just went over so much information about the Nike sneakers app, and I'm telling you guys, that is straight sauce that we just went through. Not a lot of people know about that. So let's run through an example of how this entire process would work on release day. Just to be clear, the reason that Chrome browsers work in the first place is because you're able to enter up on these Nike releases, like on the Nike sneakers app, via desktop. So they're going to drop on the app itself on your phone, and they're also going to drop the same exact thing on desktop. So it's essentially the same process as entering in through the app itself, and that's the reason why we're able to use our computer and able to use Chrome browsers. So 5 to 10 minutes before drop day, you want to open up your Chrome browsers, or your bot if you're running one, and you want to make sure that your setup is completely correct. Your account should be logged in, and you should be on a proxy for each account. Then you're going to want to go to this link, which is nike.com/launch. You'll find the shoe that should be releasing that day. And right when the shoe drops, you're just going to want to enter in on all of your devices, your friends and family, and your Chrome browsers as quickly as possible. And assuming that you've done everything right and you have a decent amount of entries going in, your chances of hitting on the Nike sneakers app should be greatly increased with all of these methods we talked about above. This still doesn't mean you're going to hit on every single release, because that's just not realistic, but I can almost guarantee that you will hit on some of them and you will be able to make consistent profits in the process. So that is a wrap on the Nike sneakers app, and that is all the sauce that you need to know to be successful with it. And if you guys actually implement what I'm talking about, you are going to be successful with the app. You're going to be able to hit on profitable pairs, and you're going to be able to make some money. So I hope that was valuable, and I hope that helped. Let's keep it moving. Now let's talk about JD Sports and Finish Line. So besides the Nike sneakers app, there's going to be other retailers that also drop sneakers online. And Finish Line and JD Sports are going to be another very popular one that you're actually going to have a chance of being able to hit on. Their website works in a unique way, and this is how their releases typically go down. A few minutes before release time, they put up a queue across their entire website. And so basically you try to go onto their website and there will be a screen that says, you are waiting in their queue. I thought I put an image down here, but I didn't. So you have to sit and wait in this queue for anywhere from 30 seconds to 10 plus minutes. And if you're able to get through the queue quickly, you will have the chance to purchase the sneaker that they released on their website on a first come, first serve basis. And basically, first come, first serve is whoever gets to check out the sneaker first is the winner. There's no raffle or entry associated with this kind of release. And so Finish Line and JD Sports typically will drop most of the GR releases, such as Dunks, Jordan 4s, Jordan 1s, and anything else similar. They won't receive super limited collaborations most of the time. And GR was defined in the terminology section way earlier in the guide. It basically just means general release. So the more like widely available sneakers, Dunks, Jordan 4s, Jordan 1s, anything along those lines. So something you could do right now is you should create an account on Finish Line or JD Sports and pre-fill all of your billing and shipping information. And just one quick tip is, JD Sports and Finish Line are owned by the same company. So if you make an account on JD Sports, you will automatically already have an account on Finish Line. You just have to use the same login information. Now let's talk about exclusive access. So JD Sports and Finish Line will also have a different type of release method, which is called exclusive access. So this is going to be different than first come, first serve, which is when the queue goes up on their website and you're just going to have to be fast when checking out, even though this is relatively similar. Every single time you make a purchase on one of these websites, either JD Sports or Finish Line, you're going to be gaining points from their store, and $100 is equal to 1,000 points. On certain releases, usually the ones that are more limited, they will drop shoes via this exclusive access method rather than dropping them first come, first serve. When they drop as exclusive access, only certain accounts with points will gain access and have a chance to purchase the shoe. So they're going to be using the same queue system as mentioned above. A queue will go up on their website, but the only people that are actually going to be able to purchase are people that received access from JD Sports and Finish Line, which is kind of random, and people that actually have points because they made previous purchases on those websites. So once you get through the queue, and assuming that you get selected, you're going to be able to purchase the shoe with points. And it usually costs like 250 points to be able to purchase the shoe. And then once you purchase, you are guaranteed that pair. So the best method that I've personally done is that you want to try to purchase good sneakers that are dropping first come, first serve that you'd actually be able to sell. So, when they don't do an exclusive access and they drop a good shoe with the other method, you're going to be able to get that shoe, you're going to get points, and you're actually going to be able to sell that shoe for a profit as well. So that's a win-win scenario because you're making profit on the shoe and you're also gaining points, which will give you a much higher chance of getting exclusive access for an upcoming release. And so just kind of a general rule of thumb, you usually need at least 1,000 points for them to start giving you access, which is the equivalent of hitting on like one pair from a first come, first serve release. The next website we're going to talk about is going to be Shopify. So for the most part, the high majority of Shopify websites are first come, first serve. And most of you are probably familiar with Shopify. And this is the platform where most major sneaker boutiques are hosted. And an example of the most popular Shopify sneaker websites include Kith, Concepts, Undefeated, A Ma Manière, and Social Status. And there's probably 50 plus more of these as well. Shopify websites are typically very hard to hit because they have low stock and because you're going to be competing against bots in the high majority of cases. When it comes to botting in general, my mindset has always been, if you can't beat them, join them. And that's the reason why I even got into botting in the first place. I was like, okay, I can complain about botters and how shitty people they are, or I can just do the same and then actually be able to get pairs and make money with it. And just to be clear, a bot is not necessary to be able to make money with sneaker reselling, but it is something that can allow you to scale, assuming that you're actually taking things seriously and you already have made some money. So most Shopify websites used to drop first come, first serve for pretty much every single release, but now a lot of them have started to switch to Raffles, which we're going to be talking about in the next section below. Sometimes for a super big release, these Shopify websites will do something called a domain change drop, which basically means that they're going to be dropping the sneakers on an entirely new random website that they just created. This does a pretty good job at stopping bots, and manual users, aka someone not using a bot, will have a much higher chance of being able to secure a pair during this kind of domain change release. And usually you're going to be able to tell when a domain change release is coming up. It's usually when there's like a super big collaboration between, Nike and then one of these other big sites here. So there are more websites and retailers that drop sneakers online than the ones that we just mentioned above, but the ones we just went over are going to be a good portion of the main ones to be focusing on when you're just getting started and you actually want a good chance of being able to hit on pairs. So now we are going to be talking about Raffles, and that entire section that we just went through was pretty much all tailored towards online releases. And so we went over Nike, we went over Finish Line, we went over Shopify, we went over domain change, and a ton of information in there. I highly recommend just, throwing it back, giving it another watch, and, so you really understand everything we just went through. So now let's talk about Raffles. Raffles explained. There is a large amount of retailers that host online raffles for upcoming sneaker releases. To keep it real, 75% of these raffles are complete bullshit, and they backdoor their pairs to friends and families and resellers who are paying above the retail price. Backdoor just means out the back door, aka they're giving them to people who will pay them more money than if they just sold it for the normal retail price like they're supposed to. And so this kid is named Benjamin Kicks. If you've been in the game for a while, you probably know who he is. And this was one of the most controversial releases of all time. These are all the Trophy Room Jordan 1s, which is Marcus Jordan's, Michael Jordan's son, basically backdoored thousands and thousands of pairs, and it created an entire uproar, and it's pretty iconic picture in the sneaker reselling game. So 75% of online raffles are complete bullshit. But for the other 25% of raffles, they are going to be legit, and you're actually going to have a chance of being able to win shoes from them. And those are the ones that we're going to be focusing on. So some of the main raffles that people actually win, and this is like real wins that I see from members of the group or just from friends or whatever it is. These are real people that I know and can trust, and I see them winning these raffles. And there's going to be more than this, but these are some of the main ones that I've seen. So number 1 is Kith. Number 2 is Concept. Number 3 is Undefeated. And number 4, which is sometimes the case, A Ma Manière. And so these are Shopify websites that we mentioned earlier. And sometimes these sites will also drop first come, first serve. But most releases for a lot of Shopify websites recently have been raffles. So this is a screenshot of some custom software we have within Resell Kings that basically just posts every profitable raffle for upcoming releases. So it'll tell you the site, the date, what shoe it is, and just, what kind of raffle. Now let's talk about increasing your chances of hitting raffles. This is solely going to rely on the amount of entries you're putting in. And as briefly mentioned earlier in this guide, sneaker sites can easily see if you're the same person trying to enter in multiple times. And so this is going to be a very similar process to the Nike sneakers app that we just covered. And so websites can see that you're the same person entering in multiple times by looking at your name, your email, your card information, your device, and your IP address. And like I said, the same thing is going to apply here as we talked about within the Nike section above. If you want to get multiple raffle entries in, you are going to have to make yourself look as unique as possible. Most raffles will be even stricter in terms of filtering out entries from anyone they think is trying to enter twice. And I mean stricter in filtering compared to Nike. Raffles are definitely very uptight with people not entering multiple times, but there is ways to do it, and we're going to talk about that now. I personally think it makes a lot of sense when you're just getting started to just stick to friends and family entering up for you on the main raffles, and then having 2 to 3 different devices that you're entering in from yourself with all unique information, of course. One of the biggest things that most raffles will filter you from is your IP address, so just keep that in mind when entering. There are people out there who bought these raffles, but it's something that I really never got into because it's very resource intensive, aka you need thousands of emails, thousands of proxies, And sites have gotten very strict with filtering, aka deleting entries when they detect they are coming from a bot. So the main strategies with Raffles is overall just being consistent and making sure that you're entering in on ones that you actually have a chance of winning. If you stick with it and get a good system going, you will be able to hit relatively consistently on these raffles. So here's an image of a unique raffle entry. It's going to be pretty much the same thing as the Nike entries that we were talking about before. So now we are going to move on to the third way to get new sneakers for the retail price, and that is going to be in-store releases. So in-store releases are held at major sneaker retailers in your specific location. You can search up sneaker stores near me, and you should be able to find some results. I grew up in South Florida, and there weirdly wasn't many stores by my specific location up until recently when a few started to pop up. The main stores that release pairs in person will be Foot Locker, Finish Line, JD Sports, Snipes, and Hibbett. And of course, there's going to be some more besides that. These are just kind of the main ones. These stores will release the high majority of GR or general release sneakers and could be a very good way to get multiple pairs at once. I recommend downloading Foot Locker, Finish Line, JD Sports, and Hibbett from the App Store. They are all completely free, and you should make accounts for each one of these now. Whenever there's an in-store release happening, most of the time it will be announced on these apps, and that's going to be the place where you're going to be able to enter in for them if it's a raffle. And obviously, if it's an in-store release, first come, first serve, you're going to have to go into the store itself. The other type of store, besides for the ones mentioned above, that are going to be releasing strictly Nike SBs, these can be very profitable, are going to be skate shops. And so I highly, highly recommend seeing if you have any skate shops in your area, and you're able to check it out with this link right here. And when you do find skate shops in your area, I would then go and follow them on Instagram and turn on post notifications. This is straight sauce because Instagram is most of these skate shops' main source of communication, so you will be able to see what release method they are using for their drops. So when it comes to in-store releases, this is going to be one of the most important parts to understand. And one of the biggest hacks of being able to hit 5 to 10 plus pairs from these in-store releases is having good connections with the workers and the managers of these stores. If you want to be able to successfully do this, it is all going to center around being a chill human being and being able to have a decent conversation with the workers. Not that hard, I promise. One tip I can give you off the rip is don't just go in there offering people money and expecting that they're going to hook you up the first time that you walk into the store. The key, as with any relationship, is you want to nurture it over time. So you should occasionally stop into stores in your area, ask questions, introduce yourself, and just talk about sneakers and upcoming drops. And just one thing to keep in mind is that people love talking about themselves. So just ask questions, and it's a super easy way to start a good conversation. Once you get more friendly with the workers, the best in all capital way to start getting hooked up is to bring them Starbucks. I don't know why this works, but it does. They all love Starbucks. This is just like the iPad on the sneakers app. I don't know why, but it works. Anyways, once you become more friendly with the workers and the managers, they will start holding pairs for you in the back and start texting you when new sneakers have hit their store and stuff like that. And, this is definitely worth investing some time into if you live close to a store and they get most of the major releases. And this is, one of our members from the group who actually used to be on the staff team, and 9 pairs of UNC toes from one store. The only reason he's able to do that is because he has connections and he is cool with the workers. You're never going to get 9 pairs just walking in there. It just doesn't happen. So that's pretty much going to wrap up the new sneakers section of this guide. That was by far the longest section that we're going to be going over. And so we just covered online releases, raffles, in-store releases, and specific sites, just a ton of information. So I definitely recommend watching some of that back if you missed some things. And now we're going to talk about flipping used sneakers. And this is a pretty different game than new sneakers. And so we're just going to hop into the introduction, and I'm going to explain exactly how this works and how you can make money while doing it. So flipping used sneakers is flipping any pair of sneakers that has been tried on at least one time. In the high majority of cases, you will be buying used sneakers from a third party, such as someone locally in your area, someone on an online marketplace like eBay, or a sneaker store that deals with used pairs. Flipping used pairs has some very different aspects than sticking to only new sneakers, which we just discussed, and we're going to be discussing the pros and cons of this down below. This screenshot is from a local marketplace, and I just looked up used dunks. And off the rip, I was able to tell that these pink dunks and these yellow dunks are fake. I could tell this instantly off the rip, and I'm going to explain how very shortly. So the used sneaker pros, this is what's good about flipping used sneakers. Number one, you can virtually have unlimited inventory as you don't have to wait for new releases to happen to be able to purchase sneakers. Just like I mentioned in the beginning of the guide, there's around 3 to 5 plus profitable sneaker releases every single month. But the reality is that if you're only going for new sneakers, you do have to wait for these releases to actually be able to get inventory and make money. So with used sneakers, there is tons and tons and tons of inventory. And so you don't have to wait for new releases to be able to purchase. Number two is you can start with less upfront capital, aka money, because used pairs will almost always be less expensive than new pairs unless it's something like super, super rare, which you're more than likely not going to be getting in the beginning anyways. And number three is if you learn how to clean sneakers up and make them in better condition, you can increase your margins even further. So the main pro is that you're able to get consistent inventory and you don't need to wait on new releases. The other pro is that you don't need as much money to get started because used pairs will almost always be cheaper than new ones. So unlimited inventory, low capital to start, and potentially very good margins. Used sneaker cons. Number one, when buying from other resellers and collectors, there is a chance that sneakers will be fake or inauthentic. Number two, more time consuming with always searching for used pairs to buy and fixing up pairs in your inventory. And number three, these are sometimes harder to sell as there is a certain group of people who only want to purchase dead stock, aka new pairs. So the chance of getting a fake pair is one of the biggest cons when it comes to flipping used sneakers. If this is the route that you want to take, I would highly, highly recommend putting some time into watching YouTube videos on how to legit check and how to see if sneakers are real and authentic. The legit checking apps out there like captchas are decent, but they can sometimes give you wrong readings just so you're aware. So really, I wouldn't even consider point 2 and point 3 with used sneaker cons. Those really don't matter as much in my opinion. The number one biggest thing is that you want to make sure that you're not getting scammed with a fake pair because I've seen that happen too many times and it's just pretty devastating in the beginning to see that happen to someone when they're trying to start something new and then, someone decides to scam them. But the reality is that that person should have done a better job with making sure that that person that they're buying from is legit, and they should have put more time into learning how to legit check instead of just jumping right into it because they saw a good deal. So ultimately, guys, if you buy a fake pair, that is going to be on you. That's your responsibility, and it is something that you can definitely avoid if you do your due diligence correctly. So where to buy used sneakers? There's a few main places to be able to consistently buy used pairs. The first is from local marketplaces such as Facebook Marketplace and OfferUp. And these are probably going to be your best bet when starting out as there should be less competition than something like eBay. It's also great because you'll be able to meet other sneaker resellers and collectors. It is very, very important that you come out of your comfort zone when meeting people in your industry, aka sneaker resellers and collectors. Obviously, you want to be safe when doing local meetups, and I'll link another guide below that explains more about being safe. And I'm actually pretty sure that I just included it in this guide as well down below. So I'm pretty sure it's there. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But number one is safety. You want to be safe, but it's really not that hard to be safe. And then once you are sure that you're safe, the next most important thing is that you want to be connecting and networking with people in your area. So assuming that the person you're meeting up with is legit and safety isn't a concern, then you want to be networking and trying to get to know about them and what they do. You can ask them questions like, are you a reseller or do you just collect? You can take a look at their page before asking this question and that should probably tell you the answer. Number 2 is how long have you been doing it? Number 3, do you buy new pairs or used pairs? What's your main way of sourcing and securing deals? Cool. If you get any more pairs just like this, can you send me a message? Do not be scared to ask questions and have a good conversation with another human being. This is so important, guys. So let me give you an example of how this has worked in my benefit. Within Resell Kings, we have a bulk buyer that cashes people out on their pairs from different releases. I originally met this bulk buyer from a deal on OfferUp. He bought some Yeezys from me and we had a decent conversation, nothing out of this world, nothing too crazy. And then after that, we didn't speak for an entire year. And what we did do is we exchanged Instagrams, and I always kind of saw him throughout the year posting he's buying and just that he's in the game. And so I randomly messaged him on Instagram to see if he was interested in buying some of my inventory. He ended up buying thousands and thousands of dollars worth of my inventory the next day, and then he ended up becoming my personal bulk buyer for about a year. Because I built up massive trust with him, we then agreed for him to buy the other members' pairs within my group. And this was only possible in the first place because we had a conversation when we met up, because we exchanged Instagrams and contacts, and basically I just wasn't afraid to reach out and see if he was interested in buying more pairs. And if you remember one thing from this document, let it be this: if you do not ask, then you will not receive. And this is just kind of, his message saying he spent around $50,000 with just my inventory alone, which is the truth. And one quick point that I want to mention that I wasn't really planning on putting in here, but I came up with this term that I call an intuition spike. And basically, if you guys have ever had a moment in your life where whatever you're doing, whether you're in the shower or whether you are just sitting down watching TV or whatever it is, and something just pops into your head where it's like, reach out to this person, or say something nice to this person, or whatever it is. Whenever you follow these intuition spikes, I have a 100% success rate with these intuition spikes, and reaching out to him was one of those. It just randomly popped into my mind, you know what, I should do this. And you want to know what I did? I did it, and look where it ended up. So just kind of going off this whole thing, when you guys have these intuition spikes like this, don't ignore them. They're there for a reason. Take action on them. And this can be in any aspect of your life. And more than likely, something very positive is going to come out of it. So now let's talk about buying used sneakers on eBay. So besides for OfferUp and Facebook Marketplace, the other main way to get used pairs is going to be via eBay. A good starting point is by typing in Nike sneakers, Jordan sneakers, Dunk sneakers, and then setting the filters to pre-owned and newly listed. So you'll be able to see used pairs that have just got listed. And you can experiment for yourself with which filters, which specific sneakers, and what platforms will work the best for you. But everything that I just gave you should be more than enough information to get started with your search. The biggest things is figuring out what models you want to be going for, making sure they're authentic, and just putting in the time to be searching all these different marketplaces for a good deal. Now let's talk about cleaning used sneakers with this image that I found that I thought was also funny, but a good example. This is another fantastic way to increase your margins. If you buy a pair from someone that's pretty beat up, you can easily give them a quick clean to increase your value. There's plenty of YouTube videos on the best ways to clean pairs. You realistically shouldn't have to spend more than $30 to $40 on supplies to be able to get this done. So, for example, you can see this Air Force One is absolutely cooked, but this guy was able to clean it up, make it look like new. This pair is probably worth about $15 to $20, and this pair is worth $40 to $50. And so you can see a massive difference if you get good at cleaning sneakers. So now we are going to talk about how to maximize your profits when selling sneakers. One of the first things I'd like to mention when it comes to online reselling is going to be cashback. And this is when you're buying directly from online retailers, like we talked about in the first section of this guide. There's two main forms of cashback when making purchases, which are either from cashback websites or from a credit card. And there is going to be an entire section in a separate course, yes, it will be free, dedicated to credit cards with reselling. I'm working on that right now. It should be posted onto my YouTube channel within a couple days, and it is going to be the ultimate credit card guide. I have so much information, and it is such an important skill to learn. So once again, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be dropping a lot more heat. So website cashback is probably the easiest way to increase your margins with essentially doing no extra work whatsoever. You purchase items as you normally would from a website such as Nike, and then you get anywhere from 2 to 15% back automatically without doing anything special. And that is a 2 to 15% increase in your margins on every single pair that you purchase through a cashback website. This adds up big time in the long run, so this is extremely important to take advantage of. One thing to note about cashback websites is that payouts will most of the time not be instant. They usually pay out every 2 to 3 months, so you're essentially just going to be stacking cashback, and then you'll get a lump sum of your totals. I've seen people get anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 in cashback alone, which can equal an extra $5 to $10K a year from doing this. And that is literally free money that they would have not had otherwise. Of course, those people are doing a high volume of sales, but someone just getting started can make an extra $100 to $200 a month for completely free by doing this. So my number one cashback recommendation is going to be Rakuten. You may have heard of this, you may have not, but you should be downloading this right now and making an account if you haven't already. If you sign up through my link down below, you will get a free $30 if you make a cashback purchase within 90 days. I will also get $30, so thank you in advance. It's basically a win-win. You get a free $30, I get $30 versus just signing up and nobody gets anything. So now we're going to be talking about the actual sneaker selling platforms, and this is a super important section, so make sure you're paying attention. And the first one we're going to be talking about is going to be StockX. Let me do you a solid right now. Do yourself a favor and never sell on StockX, like ever. Never, ever. I have sold thousands and thousands of pairs of sneakers, and not once was it through StockX. I've never sold a single shoe on that platform. The only time you should be selling on StockX is if you feel like making less profit. That's the only time. eBay. Completely different than StockX. eBay is my number one favorite platform for selling sneakers online. Their fee is 8% straight up, or it's 7% if you have their basic store subscription. It's possible they change these fees and kind of mess around with that, but this is what it's been for a while. Just like StockX, eBay has a sneaker authentication process. This is where you will be shipping your shoes after someone buys them. Once they authenticate them, eBay will then ship them to the buyer right from their authentication center. So you sell the shoe, you ship it to eBay, and they authenticate it at their warehouse, and then they ship it to the buyer. I almost always will receive a higher payout when selling on eBay than if I was to sell that exact sneaker on StockX. And one last point is I'm going to be releasing a completely free in-depth eBay guide in my online reselling system course. Haven't totally decided on the name of that just yet, but I'm going to be releasing a ton of guides. It'll be posted to the channel, so make sure to keep an eye out for that if you're interested in a full-on eBay selling guide too. Alias. Alias is another great platform to be selling your sneakers on. If you've ever heard of the platform GOAT, this is basically their selling app. They are ran by the same company. This is GOAT's selling app. And it's super easy to use. If you have a decent pair, it should move pretty quickly. And as far as online platforms go, Alias and eBay are going to be my main two recommendations for selling your sneakers. Now let's talk about Amazon. Believe it or not, you can sell hype sneakers on Amazon. You can look up pretty much any pair right now, and it's more than likely going to pop up. One of the main methods that people flip sneakers through Amazon is going to be called retail arbitrage, which is basically just outlet hunting. You go to Nike outlets, you scan every single shoe in there, and you find if there's any that are currently profitable with selling on Amazon. I would say that selling on Amazon is a bit more advanced, but it's quite honestly something that anyone can learn how to do. And once again, I will have a full-blown Amazon selling guide located within the online reselling system course that I'm going to be dropping soon. And I will also link it in this guide down below somewhere when it's ready. So just make sure to subscribe to the channel. Keep an eye out if you're interested in that too. And now we're going to be talking about local platforms. The word local just means in the area where you live. Local is sometimes preferred because you won't have to pay any fees that you would normally have to pay when selling on an online marketplace. Once again, we will be using platforms such as Facebook Marketplace and OfferUp for this. You're essentially just listing your pairs on there, negotiating with buyers, and then selling them in person, face to face. One thing that I didn't think I would need to mention, but I threw it in here anyways, is that you will, all caps, will get people lowballing you and offering you shitty prices for everything you're trying to sell. This is simply a part of the game. If you want to complain about it and let those people stop you from using the platforms and making money, then you are going to be responsible for less sales and lower payouts. Lowballs are part of the game, guys. Yes, they're annoying. No, there's nothing we can do about it except deal with it and ignore those people. Next up, we have consignment. And depending on your area, you may have some local sneaker stores and places to be able to consign your sneakers. This is a very interesting game, and it's hard for me to give advice as it's greatly going to depend on the area and the specific store by you. There's not really a one-size-fits-all when it comes to consignment. And consignment basically means that you are loaning your shoe to the sneaker store so they can put it on display and sell it. Once the shoe sells, they take a percentage of the sale and then give you the rest. It shouldn't say profit there. They usually take a percentage of the entire sale. A typical rate for this is around 15 to 25% of the total selling price of the shoe. So if you sold a shoe through consignment and you sold it for $200 and let's say they take 25%, you will be left with $150 on your end. And so basically, a lot of these sneaker stores, they're not buying inventory up front. They're actually getting loans from people. People are loaning their sneakers to them so they're able to display them. And then once they sell, they just give most of the profit to the person who loaned them the shoe. So super awesome concept in my opinion. And depending on your area, you're either going to have a ton of these or you're probably not going to have any at all. So the reason why consignment works in the first place is because these sneaker stores and these consignment stores are able to charge absolutely ridiculous prices for their pairs. You will see them list their pairs at anywhere for $100 to $200 above for what you could buy them right now on an online platform. So if I was able to get a pair of Dunks for $100 right now on eBay, a consignment store could have them up for $200, $250, or $300, and people will still pay those prices. And so this personally never made sense to me why people did this, but here are the main reasons on the psychology behind it. Number one, they can literally touch the shoes in person and check them out / try them on. Number two, they know that they're legit and they don't have to worry about getting fakes. The third reason is that people are impulsive and they are window shoppers. They see something they like and they want it at that exact moment in time. And those are the reasons why these stores can charge these insane prices for the same exact pair that you can just get online for a lot cheaper. And so here's an example of a Nike Panda Dunk for $500, which is absolutely absurd. Consignment action steps. Action steps regarding stores and consignment is this. Look up sneaker store near me, sneaker boutique near me, kicks near me, and any other keywords similar to try and find every sneaker store in your area. I would also look up the same things on Instagram, Sneaker Store Miami, Sneaker Boutique Miami, or whatever area you're in. And then I would go in person to each store and see if they offer consignment or if they offer straight buyout on pairs, because some sneaker stores will just buy your pairs outright instead of putting them up on consignment. And the key word here is in person. If you call on the phone and you're like, hey, do you guys buy pairs? They're going to say no, and they're going to hang up on you. And I think we talk about this. Yes, we talk about this in the next section. So a lot of the times stores will have specific people they buy from and only buy from, and you'll have to gain some sort of rapport or connection with that store for them to actually be able to buy from you and to want to be able to buy from you. So just be cool when going in, seem chill, know your pair's market values, and once again, just have a good conversation with them. A lot of stores probably won't let you sell to them or do consignment with them, but you're bound to find at least one that will, and that could be all you need to really maximize your profits heavily. One thing to keep in mind with consignment is that depending on the store and depending on the pair, it might be sitting a while before it actually ends up selling. So very important, you want to see how quickly that specific store is typically moving their pairs and how quickly they're moving the specific pair that you want to list through consignment with them. When your shoe's in consignment, you typically won't be able to sell it on other platforms, so your money will be tied up a little bit more, but you should be able to ultimately get more profits for that pair. So consignment might be a little bit of a waiting game, but you should be able to ultimately get higher prices. So here is the guide about avoiding getting scammed. This is another super important section that I didn't necessarily think I needed to make, but it's honestly something I see way too much. So I'm going to be giving you guys everything you need to know to avoid getting scammed. So here are some very common and basic signs of a scam. Like I said, this is something that I see far too often, and it does suck to hear about it, especially if it's someone you know or someone who's just getting started. I have personally never been scammed in my entire sneaker reselling career, and I'm gonna give you some very practical advice to always be following so you don't have to experience this either. I personally think most of this is common sense, but apparently this isn't always common. Number one is the price is too low. If you see a pair of Travis Scotts for $150 brand new, yes, I did just speak with someone who literally did this and bought a fake pair of Travis Scotts on Facebook Marketplace that they now cannot sell, then they are obviously going to be fake. If someone's selling a shoe for $100 less than what the market value is that anybody can look up at any point in time, then that should be an instant red flag. And in this example, where was it? With the used pairs, that is easily how I was able to tell that this pair and this pair were fake because they are far below market value. And so that brings us into number two. And this sounds cliche, but if it is too good to be true, then it is too good to be true. There's a reason why a cliche is a cliche. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to hook you up out of the kindness of their hearts unless you obviously have a good relationship with that person and you know them or whatever. That's okay. But if you meet a stranger on the internet trying to give you a hype sneaker for retail or trying to give you a good deal because they're feeling nice that day, or they just got a promotion at work, or their son moved out and they're trying to sell their pair, whatever their reasoning is for giving you a good price, that is an instant red flag. Number three is just be smart when meeting up with people locally. I'm going to write out an entire guide down below talking about being safe with local meetups and best practices. Let's talk about Instagram scams. Instagram GUA scams. GUA stands for gift upon arrival, which translates to you send someone the sneaker first and then they pay you after they receive the sneaker and it gets to their house. This is a relatively common way of doing things, but the most important part is that the person you're doing the deal with is actually legit, because then it's okay. But in most cases, when you're just getting started and someone wants to do this, it should be a red flag. It is extremely easy to fake refs on Instagram or Twitter. It is almost too easy. A ref, aka a reference, is just a review of the seller. If I buy something from someone, they will ask me to leave a ref on their Instagram or Twitter page, basically saying they are a legit seller and the deal went well. This will typically be the person's pinned post on their profile. So don't get me wrong, there are hundreds, if not thousands of legit sellers on Instagram and Twitter who have legit references. But I see so many people getting roasted by this scam when they're first starting out, and it discourages them from continuing. Do not let this be you, please. And so, for example, on Reddit, won an Instagram giveaway recently, wanted to know whether I should trust it. My shoe size is 9. Hi there, you won our Air Jordan 1 X Travis Scott giveaway. Congrats, you won it for retail. Because we're so nice. Look at this. They got 187K followers on Instagram. I guarantee if you look this page up, you probably won't be able to find them anymore, but they probably look super legit. You know, the giveaway had a ton of comments, and don't get roasted, guys. How to avoid getting GUA scammed. Deep dive into the person's references. That's pretty much the main way. You want to really look through the people that are commenting and saying they are legit. Keep in mind, someone can easily make 5 to 10 other fake accounts that look legit and comment refs under their main page. All you have to do to fake this is find sneaker pictures from a legit person's Instagram, post a ton of them, buy followers, buy likes, and then pay for fake refs. It's not hard to do, so you need to really be sure about the person you're doing business with. You need to make sure it's actually the person's account. I'm mainly referring to the username on this point. So let's just say that a legit sneaker store is named Hustle Sneakers. The fake name someone could try to replicate could be Hustle Sneakers. Same exact thing, they just added an S in there. And if you see a bunch of fake followers and likes and refs on the fake page, then you might look past it. Something else to consider is this. I have personally never went the route of buying or selling shoes on Instagram. There's a super large market for this, and there are a ton of people who do this and are very successful with it, but just sticking to a major platform like eBay or Alias is going to be the safest bet when you're just getting started. It's really not that hard to not get scammed. Just be smart, use your common sense, and you will be more than fine. So here is a real example from a member within Resell Kings. Please, guys, learn from his mistakes. So I just asked in our private chat, I said, hey, does anyone have any IG sneaker pages that are scammers? And this member replied, he said, I have one. It scammed me with fake followers and fake vouchers, aka refs. It looks legit. I'll provide everything once I get home in 20 minutes. And so these are the screenshots that he sent me. I'm currently blocked, but that guy changed his name several times. This is the original before he changed it. The vouchers link is from a different account with a lot of vouchers. It looks legit. I found that IG from an advertisement post, an ad offering bulk items. If you look at the posts, there are a lot of likes and replies thinking it was real. So this dude paid for an ad to get traffic to his page. Everything looked legit. He had a ton of references. He linked another Instagram, blah, 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 blah. And this member of the group, unfortunately, got roasted. Learn from his mistakes. So another type of Instagram scam is an Instagram raffle scam. And this is just another common one. The same thing is going to apply where someone makes a fake page that looks completely legit at first glance. Keyword, first glance. You should never be glancing once when it has to do with your money. What they'll do in these scams is they'll basically host a raffle for a pair of sneakers. And if you guess the lucky number or something stupid like that, you'll have a chance of winning that pair. Guess what? You were the only person who guessed the lucky number. So now they DM you saying that you won and they're asking payment so you can get the shoes for retail out of the niceness of their heart. I hope this is obvious. It's a complete scam and you should never fall for something like this. And if you want to read this of someone's experience, then I would recommend doing that just to get some more insight on what this could possibly look like. So now we are going to be talking about local meetup best practices. That was online scams. Now let's talk about actually being safe in person and making sure that we're not getting fakes or we're not getting hurt or anything like that. So local marketplaces such as Facebook and OfferUp are another extremely popular way to be able to sell your items for a good price. We talked about this a little bit earlier. The best part about these marketplaces is that you avoid online fees and you also get to network with others. With that being said, there are risks to doing this, and we're going to go over these now. The reality of the situation is that the area you live in will have an impact on how cautious you should be when applying these rules, although these rules should still be applied all the time. If you live in an area that's very wealthy, your odds of anything happening are probably lower than if you live somewhere that is lower income. Once again, it's just common sense, but these rules should still be applied 100% of the time. I'm just saying that if you live in a lower income area, you should be even more cautious and on more high alert because that's just the smart thing to do. The main risks that can happen are number one, you get robbed or God forbid you get killed. Number two, you get fake money. Number three, you get someone who charges back on you, AKA they call their bank and they get their money back after you already sold the item to them and you're never going to see them again. And so I just thought this was a funny post from OfferUp. It's like available. They're trying to, put dots in between every letter because it's a scam account and they don't want to get detected by the app. Of course, when can you meet? Okay, I want to send you and a code to verify your post. Please give me cell phone number. If you receive messages like that, come on, guys. Come on. So to avoid these things happening to you, you should always be meeting up in a public place. I rarely let anyone ever come to my house unless it's like a super big item or unless I'm sure that the buyer can be trusted. If someone asks you to meet at an abandoned gas station at 11 at night, I'd probably say it is smart to avoid that one. The ideal place to meet up is a police station. This is by far going to be the safest, and if someone doesn't want to do that, that should obviously be an instant red flag. If there's no police stations in your area, just find somewhere that has cameras and that has a lot of people around you. Tip number 1, you never want to hand someone an item if they are sitting in their car. You both want to be out of the car in a public place, and overall, you just want to use your common sense, be aware of your surroundings, and make sure everything is safe. It is always a good idea to bring a friend or family member with you to meetups with new people because having some backup is always going to be a good thing. In terms of not getting fake money, aka cash, there's 2 main things you can do. Number 1 is hold the cash up to some light, and you should be able to see the president's face on the right-hand side. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look this up. You should also just be able to feel the cash and make sure nothing feels even a little bit off. You've held plenty of cash in your life. If it doesn't feel right, the paper feels a little bit off, don't accept it. It's as simple as that. The other thing you can do is buy a counterfeit marker, that should say marker, that will check if the cash is printed on real paper. You should always count the cash 2 or 3 times before the person leaves. Do not let them count it for you. If you do this and you end up missing money after the person is already gone, that is your fault. When someone hands you cash, don't just let them, okay, 20, 40. No, you can let them do that, say, okay, thank you. Grab the cash, boom, start counting it. You have to count it 2 or 3 times. You make sure it's right. Don't ever let them count for you, and don't ever let them leave before you count the cash. Those examples are going to be for cash specifically. As far as online payment methods go, I'm going to be dropping a list of the best and the worst payment methods. And here's just a little diagram on how to prevent Facebook Marketplace or local sales scams. So these are going to be the online safe payment methods. And before we start, here are some important notes. The seller in every single transaction carries 100% of the risk. The buyer carries none, except in our specific sneaker reselling example, if you're buying fakes, that's where you have some risk. But just talking about payment methods in general, the seller will always carry 100% of the risk because they are able to get charged back on. And a lot of the times, if you're not using the right payment methods, someone could get their money back. So this is a list that one of my buddies who works in the group came up with, and this is something to live by right here. The best methods are going to be cash, obviously making sure that the cash is real, crypto, TransferWise, and a wire transfer. The next bests are going to be Revolut, Zelle, and Apple Pay, and then Cash App. And to be honest, I really wouldn't mess with Venmo. PayPal is an absolute no-go. I despise PayPal. Never use PayPal unless you're the buyer, then it's totally fine because you don't have any of the risk. One time, PayPal locked up $6,500 of my money for 180 days, which is 6 months. And so they just completely locked it. They said, my account is suspicious. And it was terrible. It was absolutely awful. And besides for my example, there's plenty of other examples like that. But it is so easy to get your money back on PayPal if you buy something from someone. It's ridiculous. So here are the best methods to use. And my personal favorite for local meetups is going to be Cash or Zelle. Of course, you always need to make sure the cash is real. For Zelle, the only sketchy thing I've ever heard of is if someone's using Wells Fargo Bank, they might be able to charge back easier than any other bank. Not entirely sure how true this is, but it's something I've heard, so I just figured I would throw it in. But I've been using Zelle for a very long time, super safe, never had any issues. And I've also used Cash App and Apple Pay as well. I prefer Zelle, I prefer Cash. And overall, that's going to be my recommendations because most people aren't going to use crypto. Most people aren't going to wire transfer. Most people don't have Revolut or TransferWise either. So I would really, really stick to Zelle or Cash. The next section of the guide is going to be sneaker botting. And this is one that a lot of people seem to like and are very interested in. And we're going to be going over everything you need to know if this is something you want to get into and you want to make a ton of money while doing it. So the first part we're going to talk about is going to be the sneaker botting mindset. And here is the reality. When most people think of sneaker botting, they think of this insanely complex and difficult software that allows people to hit on hundreds of pairs every single release. Neither of these statements are true. Botting is really not that complex, and this guide is going to show you in detail how all of it works. A bot also does not guarantee that you're going to be checking out unlimited pairs during a release. A bot does give you a significantly higher chance, but in no way does it guarantee anything. Here's what it takes to be successful with botting. This is not going to be something where you just click start and you instantly start hitting pairs and making insane amounts of profit. It's going to take time to learn how to use your bots properly, and it's going to take more time to be testing your setup during live releases to see any possible ways to improve. I'm giving it to you guys completely straight. It is 100% possible to be successful with botting. I've personally have hit thousands of pairs with bots, but just like anything else that's actually worth doing, you're going to need to invest some time into learning how to make it all work, and there's going to be needs for improvements all the time. With that being said, let's get into the specifics so I can show you guys exactly how they work. And here was a Reddit post, local resellers. Kills me how these guys can get literally hundreds of pairs, but regular people can't. Regular people don't read this guide. Sneaker botting explained. Introduction. Sneaker botting, or botting in general, is a way to take advantage of custom software that was solely made for getting sneakers and limited items in bulk. These bots are built by an individual. Most of the developers are actually on the younger side, and they are typically kept relatively limited to ensure the bot doesn't get clipped. And this just means that the website the bot's being used on starts to pay very close attention and is just continuously trying to stop that specific bot. Most bots will work on Windows and Mac, and you will need a half-decent computer to really be able to run them at their full capacity. But there is something called servers, where I have a video on my channel as well, where you don't need a super fancy computer or even a half-decent computer. You can just use a server, and that is one of the best ways to be able to run a bot if you don't want to invest into a new computer. The next question is, where do bots work? And for the most part, bots that work on your phone or your mobile device will be complete garbage. And the reason I'm even mentioning this is because I always see this absolute scam bot out there called Addict. I hate to even give them attention. Please do not buy them. But this thing is literally a complete scam and doesn't work for a single second. They just have really good marketing and they invest a ton of money into it. I honestly feel bad for anyone who has purchased this. And PS, this bot offered me $800 to make a very short fake review video on my YouTube channel. Obviously, I did not accept that. So in 99% of cases, you will only want to be purchasing bots that work on your computer. And as of the time of writing this guide, there's really only a few bots that are working at a high level. Most sneaker bots will work on other non-sneaker websites too, but for the purpose of this guide, we will just be talking about bots specifically for sneakers. Now let's talk about how sneaker bots actually work. Essentially, a sneaker bot is going to be performing the same actions that you would normally be doing when you're going onto a website and trying to check out a product. You're going to be giving a bot all the information it needs to know before the drop happens. So within the bot, you'll be telling it what website to go for, what shoe to go for, what sizes to go for, and then you will also tell it what billing and shipping information to use when it's checking out that specific shoe. Bots have something called tasks. A task is essentially just like a Chrome browser. If you're running one task on your bot, it means that you are running one Chrome browser that is automatically trying to check out whatever shoe you told the bot to check out. If you're running 10 tasks, then it's the equivalent of you running 10 Chrome browsers that are all going for the same shoe, trying to check out at once. Like I mentioned, a bot is basically performing the same actions as you normally would be, but it just allows you to run a lot more tasks, aka Chrome browsers, which can drastically increase your chances of being able to check out. So hopefully that makes sense. If it's not just yet, it will very, very soon. So here is an example of a bot. And this is just the UI or the user interface of this bot. And right when you open up this specific bot, this is the first thing that you're gonna see. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna walk through the tabs right here at the top of the screen, which are gonna be tasks, profiles, accounts, proxies, and captcha. As mentioned before, a task is essentially just like one browser going onto the website and trying to check out the shoe. On some websites, it's only better to run 2 to 3 tasks and that's it. On other websites, you can run hundreds, if not thousands of tasks for that specific release. Your task is gonna have all the information it needs to successfully attempt to check out a sneaker on the website that you want. So let's use the Jordan 4 Bread Reimagined in the example we talked about way earlier in the selling section of the guide. And we're also gonna use the website Shop Nice Kicks. And this is a Shopify website and a major sneaker boutique. So if we take a look at this image here, I'm just gonna quickly explain it. So these are all gonna be separate tasks. This is the site that we're going for. This is the mode that we're gonna be running. All bots are gonna have different modes, and that's just something that usually the bot will tell you which mode to be running. This is the item that we're gonna go for, and we're using keywords, which we'll explain in a second. Jordan 4 Reimagined. Size, we're gonna go for a random size. Our profile, we'll explain that in just a second. And we're not gonna be using any proxies, and then we can start, edit, and delete these tasks. So hopefully that is starting to sort of makes sense here. In order for the bot to be able to find the sneaker that you actually want to check out, there's a few main ways to do it. The first is by using keywords. So essentially, you would tell the bot to look for keywords on the website. For example, plus Jordan, plus 4, plus reimagined. So the bot would search the entire website, and whenever the shoe actually went live and dropped, it would automatically pick it up and proceed with the rest of the checkout process. Sometimes there will be websites that preload the shoe on the website before the actual release, and only a few of them really do this. So you'll have the actual product link of the shoe before it even goes live. When this happens, you'll always want to be running the actual product link in your task, since this is generally safer than running keywords. I say that it's safer because occasionally your keywords, if you don't do them correctly, can pick up the wrong shoe and check out an item that you didn't want it to check out. What I just explained is a bit more technical and not really something you need to know right now, but hopefully that all makes sense. And this is what it looks like when you're trying to create a task. Now let's talk about profiles. When you're running tasks, how does the bot know which billing and shipping information to use? That is done with profiles. And so if I just scroll down, you can kind of just see it off the rip right here, where you're just going to be filling in all of your information that you would normally be using when you're going onto a website to try and check out. You can make profiles to run in your bot. Each profile should ideally have unique information so you don't look like the same person trying to place multiple orders over and over again on the same website. So every single one of your profiles can be sent to a different address with a different card, and it's all done within your tasks and within your profiles. The reason we want unique profiles is that when a website sees the same person with the same information with 5 orders of the same shoe, in most cases, they're gonna cancel those orders. So once again, it's important to make ourselves look unique. Let's say that we are making 5 profiles. In an ideal world, we would want each profile to have a different email, different phone number, different address. You can do something called jigging, which I think we're going to talk about in a couple slides from now, and a different payment method, which is your credit or your debit card. So now let's say that we are running 5 tasks and they all have unique profiles, aka unique checkout information on them. Now, if we were to check out 5 pairs of the same shoe on a website, they would all be checked out with unique information and will give us our best chance at avoiding cancels on that specific website. And next up, we do have jigging. One of the easiest ways for a website to detect if you're the same person is if you're sending multiple orders to the exact same address. The term jigging is referred to slightly messing with your addresses so that it looks unique when purchasing multiple sneakers from the same website. Here are some basic forms of jigging that you can utilize. Let's say that our address is 123 Main Street. we can use jigs such as these down below. And even though these might look buggy, in the high majority of cases, they will still ship to these addresses and be delivered to your home without any issues. This is by far one of the easiest ways to get more addresses to ship to without actually having to have more physical locations. And we talked about this in the Nike section. This is super important for profiles and making yourself look unique. As a general rule of thumb, using actual unique addresses will always be the safest route. But in a lot of cases, jigging, like the methods above, will also work as a great option to get more orders delivered without getting canceled. And all that jigging really is you're able to use one address for multiple orders by making your address look a little bit different with some small tweaks in line 1 and line 2. Super simple concept. Depending on the website, you're going to need accounts in order to be able to check out. For example, if you're running your bot on the Nike sneakers app, then you're going to need a ton of separate accounts in order to be able to do this. So to keep it very simple, the accounts tab is where you enter all of the login information for your different accounts. Each task will log into a different account if necessary, so you're not running the same account over and over and over again. Next up, we have Proxies, and we did already go over this in the Nike sneakers section just as a heads up, and this is going to be the most technical section of the entire botting guide, so just stick with me and it should make sense if it doesn't already. So this is a visual of how proxies work. Once again, you're going to have your home Wi-Fi IP address, and instead of just you going directly onto Google, which is the example we're using in this visual, you are going to go through a proxy server, which has a different IP address than you. And then that is what Google's going to see on their end. They're going to see the IP address of the proxy instead of your home IP address. Proxies explained. Every single person who has a router, aka your Wi-Fi, has something called an IP address. An IP address is essentially the address for your router or for your Wi-Fi. Just like you have a home address where you live, your router also has a unique address. Nobody's router addresses or the IP addresses are the same, and everyone's will be completely unique from one another. Whenever you visit any website, they are able to see your IP address. So if you were to go onto Nike.com right now, they will be able to see your router's IP address, which is unique to you. An issue arises when a website sees that there is 100 Chrome browsers or tasks coming onto their website at the same time, all from the same IP address. They can easily tell this is a very unhuman-like amount of traffic coming onto the website at the same time because it's all coming from one person, aka your router and your IP address, which they can see. So if you're running 100 tabs going for one shoe on the same website, they can easily see that you're running a bot or you're doing something you're not supposed to be because they can just simply see your Wi-Fi and they can see your IP address. In order to avoid this happening, we're going to be using something called proxies, which are a way to mask our IP addresses at scale. And by masking, it just means changing them to look completely unique. A typical IP address is tied to a specific location, which is normally wherever your router is located, and proxies work the exact same way. A proxy is essentially like a new IP address that you're able to use on all of your tasks, so each one looks completely unique. So if you're running 100 tasks onto a website, you would run 100 unique proxies that all have different IP addresses, which are all going to have different locations. So now, instead of the website seeing 100 tasks coming from one IP address and one location, it would just look like 100 random normal IP addresses coming from different locations, which makes it extremely more complex to be able to track and to actually see that all of these requests are coming from one person. Hopefully that makes sense. I did explain this entire thing also in the Nike sneakers section, so check that one out. Maybe that explanation will be a little bit better, but hopefully that makes sense. I would recommend looking at the visual posted above to really drive things home, which is this one once again. And so just to wrap it up, instead of us using our IP address right from our computer and going onto the website, we use a proxy, and then the IP address from the proxy is what the website actually sees. Hopefully that makes sense. I've been recording for a very long time. Next, we're going to be talking about captchas. So a captcha is the thing posted below, and this is another form of bot protection that some websites use. A captcha is basically just meant to get in your way when you're trying to check out. If a website has a captcha for every single checkout session, this means that every person that wants to check out a shoe is required to fill out a captcha, then it puts a pretty big limit on being able to run hundreds and hundreds of tasks. With a lot of sneaker releases, shoes are going to be limited and checkout times are going to be pretty quick. So if you're sitting there trying to solve 50 captchas, the shoe is already going to be long gone. Solving these captchas quickly is honestly a skill that you can get better at with time, and the faster you're able to solve them, the higher chance you're going to have of securing limited sneakers on websites that use captchas. And not a ton of websites use captchas anymore. It's mostly going to be Shopify websites. Like Nike doesn't use them, Finish Line doesn't use them. Most of the main websites do not use them. Just Shopify websites are going to be the ones that do. Now we're going to talk about the botting overview, which is going to tie everything we just went over together. When you combine all of these things together, that is a high-level overview of how sneaker bots actually work. There's a lot of details that come into play when actually being successful with sneaker botting. Once again, it's not something that you just click start and it automatically starts hitting hundreds and hundreds of pairs. For a final plug, we have some of the most talented botters in the world within Resell Kings. A few members of our staff team are absolute animals. These are the guys that are hitting hundreds of pairs every drop, and some of our members are absolutely insane with it too. Botting is something that I've personally done for a long time, and it has made me a shitload of money. If you want to learn the game and how to get it done, we are the place for you. And so this is just the overall view of how sneaker botting works. You have your tasks, which are the Chrome browsers. You have your proxies, which are masking your IP addresses. You have your profiles, which is all of your billing and shipping information. And then you might have to solve captchas, and these are basically just a website's way of trying to slow you down. The last part in the sneaker botting section is going to be sneaker bot pricing. So for some quick history, sneaker bots just a few years ago costed up to $10,000 each. Once again, this was during COVID and when everyone was looking for a way to make money online. This significantly drove the prices of bots upwards, but now they have declined and are back to their quote unquote normal prices. Most sneaker bots are around $50 to $100 a month to run right now. You will also need proxies, which is about another $50 to $100 in a relatively decent setup. I'd say all in all, if you wanted to get into sneaker botting right now, which is the time of me writing this, then it would cost you about $250 up front and then about $100 a month afterwards to continue running it. If you're able to hit on just 1 or 2 good releases every month, this can 100% pay off, and I honestly recommend botting to anyone who's looking to take reselling seriously. This screenshot were prices back in 2021, and I personally paid $4,600 for the one in the middle named Cyber. Prices, of course, are nowhere near this anymore, and you can start getting into botting for much, much cheaper. And that is going to bring us to the conclusion of this guide. And just to reiterate it one more time, there is 100% money to be made with sneaker reselling. This guide should have laid out all the different avenues and possibilities that you can choose from. If you put in the work, you will be successful and you will be able to make thousands of dollars in profit. If you need any additional help or have any questions, feel free to drop a comment down below or feel free to message me on my personal Instagram at Troy Samick. I am more than happy to help. Once again, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more guides just like this. Drop a like on this video if you found it valuable. And I hope this provided a massive amount of value. Have a good rest of your day. Peace, guys.